In today's video, we're going to learn how to paint Thor from Marvel Crisis Protocol.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible to each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So currently we're painting superheroes from Marvel Crisis Protocol, and in today's video we're going to be painting Thor. So make sure you stick to the end because there are going to be many tips and tricks of how you can paint Thor to a very high level. So I'm going to go really in depth like how I did with Hulk, and there will be 3 videos in this series. So in order to paint Thor from Marvel Crisis Protocol, I also did some research of how Thor was portrayed in comics, and I was very inspired by this artwork by Sideshow Collectibles, and look at how the orange light from the bottom is showing. That's why I painted Thor in this way. So this is the finished result of Thor, and today we are going to paint the flesh, the cape, and some NMM silver parts on his chest. So if you're ready to paint Thor, let us begin. So collectors, these are the colors that you'll be needing. So get all these colors ready and let's paint some Thor today. So right now we're going to be mixing the ambient light first. So with this series, I'm making sure that the ambient light is really strong, and I'm mixing Chimera Orange with Chimera Red. And at this stage, I'm just base coating the bottom half of the miniature to make sure that all the crevices and all the shadows have a degree of this orange ambient light. At this point of time, you just want to make sure that you achieve an even base coat, and I'm not taking into any consideration the form and the shadows of this miniature just yet. This is present in order for me to contrast the cooler object source lighting from Mjolnir, which is coming up in the later stages. So now that I'm making a darker brown using black and orange, I'm going to be slowly reducing the value and the gradient upwards onto Thor's body. This is just to provide a little bit of warmth in the shadows moving up. It also shows that the ambient light is less influential, progressing up the model. So with the same color, I'm actually darkening down some of the ambient light to commensurate and match with the rest of the body. Okay, so now I'm making some of the flesh tones. I'm using a bit of Indian shadow from Scale 75 mixed in with a little bit of basic flesh, also from Scale 75, and adding in a little bit of orange. So at this point of time, I'm placing in the highlights in accordance to the shapes seen in the black and white photo. So in this series, I'm really trying to be as disciplined as I can, paint the black and white photo onto the miniature in terms of shape and in terms of value. Okay, so now adding more basic flash into the mix. I'm trying to increase the value stage by stage, and as mentioned, being very precise, I'm placing the shapes in. At this point of time, I am not blending at all. Similar process to the Hulk, there is almost no blending until the later stages in the paint process. So in the Hulk, I emphasized about soft edges, lost edges, and hard edges. If you want to find out more about what these mean, you can check out the Hulk video where I talk about the edges. Links will be in the description. Alright? So right now I'm just placing some of the highlights. I'm going to make sure that I get a soft edge between the shadows and the midtones, which I'm doing right now. Okay, so as seen on the palette, I'm adding in a little bit of scale 75 fluorescent blue and adding in a little bit of basic flash. So this kind of cools down the temperature of the model and the flash tone in preparation for the blue OSL coming from Mjolnir. So right now I'm adding in a little basic flash and a little bit of fluorescent blue. I'm going to be placing some highlights. Okay, good question on where to place the highlights. So if you are watching right now, you might be wondering where the highlights are supposed to be placed. And like I mentioned in the Hulk video, just be very disciplined with the shapes that are presented on the black and white image. The full black and white images in its full resolution will be available on my Patreon, so you should go check that out. It'll be a very useful resource for painters who are wanting to paint Thor and other similar miniatures. I will be providing all the black and white images for subsequent projects, so that if you want to follow how I paint this, the shapes and the descriptions can be on these references. Alright? So now placing in a pre-extreme highlight. This is predominantly pale flash and fluorescent blue from scale 75. Just placing these onto areas to re-emphasize some volumes and surfaces which are directly affected by the blue object source lighting from Mjolnir. Alright, so this is roughly how the flash is looking right now. I'm gonna be starting on the NMM areas. So that was dark grey mixed in with a little bit of blue, fluorescent mixed in a little bit of orange from Chimera, and I'm gonna be placing in the main highlights for the chest armor right here. So corrections on that, this is not NMM yet, this is more or less the black armor which Thor is wearing on his chest. Alright, so just initially placing the highlights large, later we'll be widely shading it down with black ink, so you'll see how this works. So adding in a little bit of pale blue grey and a little bit of fluorescent blue. Gonna be creating stronger tone of higher value of blue grey right here. So as per normal, just placing the highlights in very precise shapes. Okay, so now just adding in a little bit of pale flash so that this equals out the value on the face. Gonna be placing the next level of highlight in accordance with the shapes that was pre-planned and plotted. Remember, no blending is involved right now. Alright, now we're gonna be adding a little bit of white to make this armor really pop. And gonna be super duper selective about this. So if you're watching the video till now, I hope you found this video useful and entertaining, or you could maybe use some of these skills. So yeah, why not also help out the channel by, remember, liking and subscribing to the channel, because it tells YouTube all that YouTuber stuff. Would really appreciate it. Okay, now we're gonna do lame medium and black ink. This black ink is from Green Stuff World, and I'm gonna thin it down in a ratio of about 50-50. And I'm just focusing on the shadows, making sure that the shadows are well emphasized, and trying to leave this black ink out of the highlights. This is to re-emphasize the shapes and to show the deepness of this black armor that he's wearing on his chest. So just re-emphasizing the highlights with the white highlight. Alright, this really adds the shine onto the miniature and creates a point of interest. This also makes this look a little bit more complex, and I'm really liking the results of this. Adding a bit of orange into that Indian shadow. We're gonna start creating the reflected light right here. So for the NMM, I'm gonna need to reflect the orange from the bottom. So this ambient light will be portrayed onto these reflective surfaces to show the warmth coming from the bottom where the rocks have been broken. Okay, so this is also done in the bottom 4 balls, which is on Thor's armor. Adding a little bit more Chimera orange and adding in a little bit of basic flash right here. I am placing in some highlights on the reflected light. So you guys might notice me using the 3 different degrees of flash as the gauge for value. Very accurate. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm using the shadows, the basic flash and the pale flash to judge which are the values that are to be used. So just being very precise here with the highlights on the reflected light. So now I'm gonna start making the highlights on these orbs. Okay, so that's dark gray mixed in with a little bit of pale blue gray. I'm gonna be placing the initial layers of midtones onto these silver orbs. Alright, so right now, as you can see, just even the very little details, very little small planes of exposure. I'm also adding in a little bit of this color. So this really makes this miniature look a lot larger than he's supposed to. Okay, now just making the highlight higher in value and slightly cooler. I'm gonna be placing subsequent highlights right here. So this is how the model looks for now. I'm gonna make the extreme highlights now. And this is instant gratification. When you add a little bit of white and you push the highlights, this really makes the shine, makes the gleam, makes the bloom, or what some people call it. Yeah, and I really like the effect on this non-metallic metal once the highlights are pushed to the extremes. Right now we are almost at pure white already, really now pushing the highlights, and as you can see, with no blending at all, this miniature is looking pretty proper. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. Stay tuned for Thor part 2 as I finish him, and as you can see, this is the final result. Hope you like him. So that was just part 1. There's going to be 2 more videos, so make sure you check out the rest of the videos. They will be uploaded and you can check out the playlist link in the description below. At this point of time, if you are still watching all the way to now, you must have found this video somewhat useful or somewhat entertaining. Please give me a like and subscribe if you think I deserve it, because it really helps the channel and it tells YouTube and Google that this video is relevant so that more people get to see this, because I get paid to do this. Also, if you want to support the channel, please head on to the Patreon and become a patron today. It is through the generous support of my patrons I'm able to paint and record these videos so that we all get to become better miniature painters together. The exclusive video for this time round would be again an unadulterated director's cut of the entire painting process for Thor, and you don't want to miss it. Alright, so I hope to catch you in the next video. See you.